The legendary Chicago Bulls player, Dennis Rodman's life outside of basketball has been far from peaceful. What happened in the basketball icon's life that made him who he is today? Let's take a look at his upbringing, the antics you may not know about him, and see why tragedy and conflict followed him off the court. The truth is, his life has not been easy, but the reason may be different from what you remember. Would you believe that Dennis Rodman was actually a mama's boy as a little kid? That's right, the man who would eventually turn into one of the harshest, scariest defenders in the league was attached to the hip of his mom when he was growing up. I can't really blame the guy. His childhood wasn't great. Dennis was born in Trenton, New Jersey on May 13, 1961, and right off the bat, things were rocky. Dennis's dad, Philander, wanted nothing to do with the family and left Dennis, his mom, and two sisters high and dry. He instead decided to jet off and live in the Philippines. He stayed quite busy, and Dennis's dad ended up having 29 children in total. Dennis was essentially raised by three women, his mother Shirley and his two sisters, Deborah and Kim. They moved to Dallas, Texas, and Dennis immediately latched onto his mom and hardly ever let go, even when she wanted him to. According to Dennis, his mom was always more interested in his sisters than him. I felt shut out not having a father, always having to look out for myself, and my mother just didn't have enough time to be with me. She was always more interested in my sisters, Dennis said years later. Both of Rodman's sisters were talented basketball players, and Dennis wanted to be one too. Unfortunately, he just didn't have the skills that both Deborah and Kim did. As a kid, Rodman was 5'6" and didn't possess the natural skill sets that both his sisters did. He tried to get better and focused on playing ball, but he was constantly riding the bench. He understandably got tired of this and eventually gave up on his dreams of playing basketball. He also got cut from the football team too. It's crazy to think about now, but Dennis Rodman didn't seem like a star athlete for many years. Rodman didn't have a whole lot of prospects at the time, so he took any job he could. Like his mother, he agreed to odd jobs in order to support himself and his family. He would eventually get hired as a janitor at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport. While working there, he experienced his first run-in with the law, getting busted for stealing watches from a store at the airport. Thankfully, the charges were eventually dropped. Something wild happened during his time working at the airport that nobody expected. Rodman suddenly experienced a massive growth spurt and rocketed up from 5'6" to 6'7". Because of this, he wanted to try his hand at basketball again, but this time he had something to offer. Now a bona fide talent, Rodman was able to secure a spot in college and played ball for both North Central Texas and Southeastern Oklahoma State. He was then selected by the Detroit Pistons as the 27th overall pick in the 1986 draft and went on to become one of the most flamboyant and driven players for the Detroit Pistons, San Antonio Spurs, Chicago Bulls, Los Angeles Lakers, and Dallas Mavericks. During his 14 seasons with the NBA, Dennis scored 6,683 points and grabbed 11,954 rebounds too. He is still considered one of the best rebounding forwards of all time and a defensive powerhouse who was impossible to look away from. However, Rodman was almost better known for what he did off the court than what he did during games. One of the first things that raised a few eyebrows was his interest in wrestling. In March of 1997, Rodman appeared with his friend Hulk Hogan during a match for WCW. He would make multiple appearances in the ring, and even wrestled against fellow NBA great Karl Malone in 1999. Was that weird? Yes. But was it must-see TV? You bet it was.
Yes! That's what we want to see!
Perhaps one of the oddest moments of Rodman's career, and really the 21st century, was when Rodman returned to the wrestling ring to take on both Butterbean and Dustin Diamond. Yes, Screech from Saved by the Bell, in Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling. Don't worry, Screech didn't have anything on Rodman, and Dennis ended up winning. Rodman was definitely interested in a life outside of basketball. In fact, maybe too much so. He was repeatedly called out for behavior in his personal life and was sometimes late to games or would miss them entirely as he was too busy jet-setting to Vegas or enjoying a celebrity-style life. Rodman had one foot on the court and one foot in Hollywood as his career in the NBA started to wind down. He appeared on multiple shows, such as the sitcom Double Rush, the syndicated TV show Special Ops Force, Third Rock from the Sun, The Simpsons, and more. Rodman also tried his hand at movies, and the results were, well, they weren't great. His first major film debut was a movie called Double Team, which saw him share the screen with action film icon Jean-Claude Van Damme. Double Team was definitely a product of the 90s, filled with gratuitous violence and mindless explosions. The critics were not kind. In fact, Rodman earned himself 3 Golden Raspberry Awards for the film: Worst New Star, Worst Supporting Actor, and Worst Screen Couple. Rodman wasn't done. In 1999, he released an action comedy called Simon Says, and then a skydiving epic entitled Cutaway. Spoiler alert. Both films were panned by the critics and hardly seen by anyone. The last NBA team he played for was the Dallas Mavericks in 2000, but that wasn't the official end of Rodman's time on the court. In fact, Dennis played for multiple teams in various basketball associations after hanging up his Mavs jersey. He first suited up in 2003, played for the Long Beach Jam, which was part of the American Basketball Association. Rodman was hoping that if he played a bit for them in this league, the NBA would take note of the skills he still had and would call him back for another contract. He didn't get that contract, so instead he spent time playing in Mexico and also overseas in the UK and Philippines. But when 2006 came to an end, Rodman knew his time playing basketball was over, and he hasn't suited up since. But even though his days playing professional ball were over, Rodman didn't quite disappear from the public eye like some do. In fact, in many ways, he became more popular and more famous after his NBA retirement. Or should I say, more infamous. Dennis has a thing for wild women, and he's made no secret of that. It only makes sense because he himself is also someone who is over the top and a bit hard to contain. Again and again, he has started and ended relationships that are tabloid worthy. Rodman has said that his relationships with women are, quote, one of the biggest failures in my life, and it's clear that he has a hard time staying away from women who bring out the worst in him. He married his first wife back in 1992 after 5 years of dating. Even though they had been seeing each other since 1987, their marriage only lasted 82 days. His whirlwind romances didn't end there. In 1998, Rodman created tons of headlines when he married model and actress Carmen Electra in, you guessed it, Las Vegas. In fact, they got married at the world-famous Little Chapel of the Flowers. Rodman and Electra had been dating for months and were reportedly head over heels in love with one another. Electra told the LA Times that the Dennis she fell in love with was vastly different from the persona that so many people saw on the basketball court. He would always say, "No one understands me. No one gets me." He was very emotional at times, she said. She added, "Then there was the sweet romantic side and the fun, eccentric guy who loved to go out and drink and wear feather boas." Whatever love was there seemed to evaporate rather quickly. If you thought an 82-day marriage was bad, get this. Rodman and Electra only stayed husband and wife for 9 days before Rodman filed for an annulment. They tried to reconcile and work things out, but after 6 more months, both Rodman and Electra threw in the towel and went their separate ways. Through their relationship, Rodman and Electra lived a crazy life and often caused quite a scene. But nothing was worse than when they were both charged with misdemeanor battery after police were called because of a domestic disturbance. According to the LA Times, the police stated that both Dennis and Carmen were insulting and hitting one another. Under state law, the police had to arrest both of them even though neither wanted to press charges. This ordeal came only months after Dennis spent a night behind bars due to causing a disturbance at a restaurant when he got into a scuffle with another customer and police were called. Those charges and the one related to the domestic disturbance were eventually dropped, but they all underscored a very negative public image of Rodman. Because of all this, the press didn't stop hounding Dennis and Carmen, and their pictures were splashed across dozens of magazines. This was the point in Rodman's life when he was becoming more of a media sensation than a basketball star. Rodman was popping up on newsstands and in late-night monologues all over the place, and he really didn't like it. In fact, years later, Rodman would make his opinion of fame quite obvious. When speaking to the Seattle Times, he simply said, "I hate it, absolutely hate it," when talking about being a well-known public figure. In his book, I Should Be Dead by Now, Rodman touched upon how people view him, especially in the later years of his career. He said the strangers, quote, respected me as an athlete, as a famous person, and that was great, but as far as being a human being, that was a different story. Dennis's next relationship wasn't one that got mentioned as much by Jay Leno and Saturday Night Live. Just months after his relationship with Carmen Electra ended, Dennis met Michelle Moyer, the woman who would have 2 children with him. He might not like being famous, but Rodman hasn't done a whole lot to combat his fame. Beginning all the way back in 1999, Rodman started to get into trouble with the law, often for drinking in public and causing a scene. At the end of 1999, Rodman was arrested for drunk driving and driving without a license. He eventually pled guilty to that, and he had to pay a small fine and attend a rehab program. But it obviously didn't work, because he has been arrested for the same charges again and again in the years after. And those weren't the only crimes he's been hit with. He's also been charged with domestic violence a few more times, a hit and run, and battery. It's been reported that the cops were called to his home in Newport Beach 70 times because of loud music and wild parties. Yet Rodman has somehow avoided jail time. He's been locked up here and there, but he has yet to serve a very serious sentence, instead paying out fines and promising to attend programs that will help him stay on the right path. All of that is clearly quite wild, but perhaps nothing is as crazy as Rodman's relationship with Kim Jong-un. The North Korean dictator has taken a strong liking to Rodman over the years, and it's led to one of the most bizarre, unique political partnerships ever. Back in 2013, Rodman raised a lot of eyebrows when he visited North Korea with members of the press. As you may know, getting into North Korea isn't easy, and getting out can be even harder. The nation is run by its ruthless leader, Kim Jong-un, who just so happens to be a major fan of NBA basketball, believe it or not. For years, North Korea has been viewed as a serious threat to the rest of the world. Rodman swore he was visiting the country so that he could bring peace between North Korea and America. Rodman brought along some members of the Harlem Globetrotters, and the trip to North Korea began. Throughout his stay there, Dennis got close with Kim Jong-un and even said that he would be a, quote, friend for life. He would later tell the New York Post about what he did while spending time with the North Korean dictator. For me to go over there and see Kim as much as I have, I basically hang out with him all the time. We laugh, we sing karaoke, we do a lot of cool things together. We ride horses, we hang out, we go skiing, we hardly ever talk politics, and that's a good thing, Dennis said. At the time, some people protested the move, saying that it only complicated the tricky situation between America and North Korea. But Rodman being Rodman, he didn't care and he vowed to return to the country. Rodman dipped his toes into politics beyond just his frequent trips to North Korea. Back in 2015, he endorsed Donald Trump's presidential campaign. The two are friends and appeared together on the TV show Celebrity Apprentice in 2013. At the time, Rodman said, quote, "We don't need another politician, we need a businessman like Mr. Trump." In 2017, when Trump was president, Rodman went back to North Korea so that he could, in his words, straighten things out between Kim Jong-un and Trump. On this trip, he actually didn't meet with Kim Jong-un, but instead connected with the Minister of Sports and gave him several gifts for the leader, including basketball jerseys and Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal. Although this trip wasn't officially sanctioned by the US, Rodman swore up and down that he was trying to broker peace between the two nations. And although people have sometimes made fun of Rodman's desire to continually return to the so-called Hermit Kingdom, others believe he really is working on behalf of America. Adding fuel to that fire is the fact that the CIA would, quote, neither confirm nor deny that it has a relationship with Rodman. So is there a chance that Dennis is actually a CIA agent? If so, he would be the craziest undercover agent in history. In the last few years, Dennis has been laying low a bit more than normal, but he hasn't been completely out of the public eye. He popped up on an album released by hip-hop duo Mansions and also contributed to a mixtape for A$AP Ferg. In 2022, Rodman made headlines again when he appeared on the VH1 reality TV show The Surreal Life. Living alongside other stars, Dennis proved that he's still as wild as he wants to be. That was made incredibly clear when he strutted around the house butt naked on the first night of filming. Malcolm and the Middle star Frankie Muniz put it best when he told cameras, quote, "I saw way too much of Dennis Rodman." Dennis is 62 years old now, and it seems as if he put most of his demons behind him. Now he's focused on his legacy and what he will leave behind. "Sports reporters are forever asking me how I want to be remembered," he said in his book. Well, as a hell of a basketball player, certainly, but not just that. Rodman wants people to look at him as, quote, a symbol of hope for people everywhere who are afraid to open up and be themselves. Dennis has said that he wants his tombstone to say, "Don't follow a path, blaze a trail." For all his ups and downs and good moments and bad, there is no doubt that Dennis Rodman has done that throughout his life. Life is complicated for everyone, and some people have it worse than others. It's undeniable that Dennis Rodman has been through a lot. Yes, much of this was self-inflicted, but as you can see, things have never been easy for him. That's quite a life, huh? Yeah, Rodman has seemingly done it all. Hey, while you're here, why don't you check out our video on Larry Johnson, another NBA great who made a lot of noise on and off the court.